a lot of days we've been fighting every day. Um, so, and those days, here we are, May 27th, 2026, 2,124 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss. It was internal, y'all. It was a mutiny. It was a code red. Matter of fact, Lalani Hart called it a code red. She wrote a paper on it. She wrote a paper on it that it was a code red. And of course, her son, Dallas Wayne Hart, born on August 3rd, the same day as the Walmart mass shooting occurred. He is a prime suspect, Richard's platoon leader. And of course, their family member in the CID who had his badge removed. Um, More needs to happen, but CID um, was compromised, absolutely compromised, and Tavita Nusa um, participated in this brutal attack on our son because he was a whistleblower. And of course, he knew he was a whistleblower. And we know that our son's identity was leaked by the El Paso FBI field office there by Assistant Special Agent in Charge Connell Wetton. Um, so this was, an infiltration into our agencies and our military that produced this brutal attack on a U.S. Army soldier that was whistleblowing because he didn't like seeing the military being used for cartel activity and cartel activity using M4s in the Walmart mass shooting. Um, and we see the CIA agents that were just recently killed in Chihuahua uh, witness statements that they were not just witness statements. FGR, that's the Fiscalia, the investigating prosecutors in Chihuahua, Mexico, said they had office space. They were coming in and out of the intelligence building carrying M4s. M4s are illegal rifles in Chihuahua in Mexico. And those are military. You don't see them in the United States either unless you're in the military. So those are military grade weapons, and they were at the Walmart mass shooting event, the Silla Vista. Um, and this is, you know, additional evidence to what we have. Today was, I'm still, I never, I can't be shocked again. I can't be shocked again because every day is like breaking news. And when I'm thinking about Richard every day coming on here and saying he was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss and taken to the basement room, and his life was taken from him. And then they stole his body to traffic it across international borders um, to be disposed of. And to think about the CBP and to think about the Department of State and the consulate, and to think about Mexico, and to think about just the security on Fort Bliss, what that would take. Um, and then 6 years later, to understand that it absolutely happened and that we have answers, and not only answers, but we have evidence. And the evidence keeps piling up and piling up, and we keep filing. I want everyone to understand that we are not just on the computer, that we are not just doing live streams, that we are absolutely filing, filing, that every agency that we could think of, every official that we can think of has received filings from us, and that includes those in Mexico. Okay, that includes those in Mexico. We are not just coming on here and reporting. We are absolutely engaged in the legal truth, the legal pursuit for our son's remains and for the accountability for those who did this and participated in this and facilitated it and coordinated it. And that includes Maru Campos, the Chihuahuan El Chapo fentanyl governor. She runs a narco state. It is a total narco state. Not only that, she runs Chihuahua like it's her own country. She totally violates Mexican sovereignty, Mexican constitutional laws. And then she claims immunity, like she's not under those laws, that she did not commit treason, that she did not know 100% of her coordinating and coordinating the rogue operations in her own state with foreign agencies. And it's not just the US. So you can't just blame the US, because it's not just the US that she is coordinating with to get just the platforma, the Centella platforma, the treasonous treaty, the rogue operations. This requires not just the United States. And so she is absolutely, and why is this personal to us? Because it was Chihuahua where our son's remains ended up. It was Chihuahua, Mexico, where our son's remains ended up. So let me make sure that I'm on. Doesn't seem to want to connect on my phone. And I know I do this kind of like a, there it is. So it let that sink in, that she was absolutely coordinating unauthorized rogue operations in her state, bypassing the Mexican federal government, bypassing the Mexican Constitution, bypassing Mexican sovereignty. And we know this because of years of gathering leads, because we were told to do that. If we wanted any help with our son's case, we would have to investigate ourselves and we would have to provide leads. And that's why we have filed, because we are doing what they asked us to do. And we have filed a lot. And those leads, that evidence, that hard evidence, has gained a lot of loyalty. There are individuals out there that we have secured their faith in us. We have earned their loyalty and their trust, and they have shared with us hard evidence. Well, lots of evidence. And today we have hard evidence that proves, and there's lots of evidence, okay, but this piece proves that Maru Campos was coordinating with foreign agents and that she knew about it. And it was from the get go of her administration. From the beginning of her administration, she was engaged in treacherous against Mexico, against her own constituents, activities and coordination. And that she was absolutely an operative for the El Chapo Sinaloa cartel. That she was in alliance with the El Paso cartel and the operative for the El Paso cartel, double agent Alejandra de la Vega Foster, whose husband, do not forget, paid out, I think it was 42 million, it might have been a little bit more, dollars in a settlement, in a quiet settlement, because he was caught stealing or buying stolen Pemex oil at, probably pretty good price, right? That's why he's buying stolen oil. He wasn't buying it from the Mexican people. He was buying it from thieves. And, then you have Cesar Paneche, who was caught stealing billions of barrels of Pemex oil, selling it in his Grupo Carvel, Energy Grupo Carvel. This is Alejandro de la Vega's Foster's husband that quietly paid out a settlement of like 42 million, which when you're talking about oil, would be interesting to know how much he made on the stolen oil. But this is who Maru Campos is in alliance with. And of course, the embezzler, Cesar Duarte, who cleaned up that embezzled money, embezzled from the Mexican people. See, everything that she does declares, you know them by their fruit, right? Declares that she is not for Mexico, not for the Mexican law, not for the Mexican Constitution, not for Mexican sovereignty. And this is personal to us because our son's remains were brought to her jurisdiction. And now we know why. Because it was a narco state, because it was totally corrupt, and because it was in alliance with the El Paso cartel, who had a hand and responsibility for the murder of our son, the cover-up. And that alliance includes the CJNG cartel. I want to make that very clear too. La Linea, CJNG, the El Chapo Sinaloa or Sinaloa cartel, which is designated with the CJNG as a terroristic organization. So there is no doubt for us with the evidence that we have, and including the one we're about to show you, and I'll post it up. I'll post it up. So here is the document. It's fuzzy, but that's okay. You can go real close, and we did redact any sensitive information that, we uh, think that does not need to be released publicly. But what this shows you and what this proves, without any doubt, is that Maru Campos, with Carlos Manuel Salas, because he's the prosecutor for the North Zone, was coordinating with the department, I should say, the consulate office there in Ciudad Juarez, because this is the Department of State, but it is a compromised consulate office. And we know that we have so much evidence that they were compromised. Even with Jeffrey Epstein's release, there's evidence that he was in the consulate office having his parties and more and more. So they're very compromised there in the Ciudad Juarez consulate office, and they were being coordinated by Maru Campos because she was in alliance with the El Paso cartel, who have a lot of power over that border because they like their trafficking. I mean, if you're engaged in theft, right, or buying from thieves, you want control over the border. So, and also with CBP. We did put that up. The United States Consular General at Ciudad Juarez, and also the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the CBP. And this document here behind the pictures, I did make a, just to show people who's who. Was about this man here, this fraudster. He is a major fraudster. This is the CEO of Juárez. Juárez was um, a wanted man, a fugitive, 5 million pesos. I mean, wow. Right? 1 million pesos went to the judge to release Arliano Caron, right? But this is 5 million pesos. And he's wanted. Why? Because he is a fraudster. He carried out a Ponzi scheme that 450, I'm doing everything off the top of my memory, 450 victims, millions, I think $15 million, US dollars stolen. And Maru Campos and Carlos Manuel Salas had him. They had him, but 5 million wasn't enough for him. I guess that wasn't enough, or they issued that out. They issued that out, but the U.S. wanted him, and they let him go. They let him go. I bet you it was a tidy sum. Because what we've heard is that there's quid pro quo, that Chihuahua has quid pro quo. But the point is, you can say, well, I wonder how much, which they got, how much they bribed him for, or whatever. They charged him to let him go. The point is that he was allowed to cross the border a wanted man, and not just any wanted man. He's known. They know who he is. And so, my goodness, this is coordination of a rogue operation, unauthorized operation in violation of Mexican sovereignty constitutional law and the United States also. But what we want to say is that Maru Campos has been saying, "Oh no, I didn't know anything," whatever. And then she goes on the media tour and she spills the beans, right? And now we have this hard evidence that proves that she has known all along. She is dirty. And she is coordinating rogue operations with foreign agencies like the CIA, like the FBI, like the DEA, like the HSI, Homeland Security, like the border protectors, like you name it, ATF. She's coordinating. And she's coordinated with other foreign agencies. And we have absolutely posted everything that we can publicly post. As fast as the information comes in so fast. It comes in so fast because people have been very, very kind to us to move this forward. They know that this has been an attack by Maru Campos and the alliance of cartels, the El Chapo cartel, the El Paso cartel, the CJNG cartel, the La Linea cartel, that the Juarez cartel, that these cartels made an alliance and that they were asserting their power against the sovereignty of Mexico and the sovereignty of the United States. This is not the United States against Mexico or Mexico against the United States. This is rogue operations by terroristic organizations and cartels that made an alliance. And they have carried on along the border like it was its own separate jurisdiction, entity, its own separate country. That's what's been happening. So this is an assault on Mexico, an assault on the United States. And they've killed Americans and they've killed Mexicans. And they don't care. They don't care. Remember how many missing people in Mexico? How many were trafficked? How many were exploited? Well, in the case of CEO Juarez, it was Americans that were exploited. So they don't care. This is not this is an assault on humanity on both of our countries. And absolutely, without a doubt, when Maru Campos went to Texas Governor Abbott, they committed treason. They committed treason. And so what's going to happen? How is this going to be addressed? Well, from day one, President Trump has been addressing this. And it's not an easy an easy, I can tell you right now, when you have chain of commands that are mutinous, when you have a judicial system that has been infiltrated by cartel, that they answer to the cartel rather than to their oaths and their duty. So on both sides, and now President Scheinbaum is having that tough task too. But in the last a year and a half, hundreds of cartel leadership have been taken out. Um, the pipelines for the cash, the USAID, and more, the Iranian cash, right? There's that big pipeline for fentanyl precursors that has been taken out. The oil theft with Maduro and Cesar Peniche has been taken out. And of course, remember the Gulf cartel that were leading Miss Universe. His name was Rocha too, right? His name was Rocha. He was also with the fuel theft. And you had the arrests of many that were engaged in the human trafficking. Just in the last year and a half, you can go on and on about, the leader of the tunnels there on the border. He was killed, and when he was killed, his guards were the state police because the police were compromised. And taxpayers were having to pay for security for the cartel. I mean, what a racket. And then you have the death of El Mencho, where his logbooks and journals were taken. And lo and behold, of course, because he was no dummy, he kept very good records. And it shows that officials all the way to Mexico City were compromised. And that this was a huge economy. And so, how do you get rid of an illegal, criminal, terroristic organization economy? You have to have a plan. You have to absolutely replace it with a legitimate economy. And that's why you saw President Scheinbaum now make a deal, an economic deal, a legitimate one that is a Mexican sovereignty deal with the EU. It's not a Maru Campos deal. That's her own little fiefdom or whatever. Fiefdom, what do you call those? No, this was for the people of Mexico, and it was transparent. So, and I hear that she's making a deal now with China to replace the fentanyl and human trafficking. Look at on the border, they were doing funeral flesh peddling, organ harvesting, baby harvesting, sex trafficking, along with the drugs. And then, of course, when you have that kind of illegal economy, then you need a lot of guns. And there was a lot of guns. And I bet you a lot of those guns came from being smuggled out of Fort Bliss because Fort Bliss was compromised. The security was breached. They took Richard's body off of Fort Bliss. They absolutely would take fuel and equipment and guns and ammunition. They absolutely. And that's why you see the M4s. The M4's in the hands of CIA operatives operating illegally under the coordination of Maru Campos in Chihuahua, under her government. And they had no intention. She talks, oh, like, we were just stopping that lab. No, she wasn't stopping that lab. There's no indication that she was stopping that lab. They were drone operators. They were there for some reason, and they met up with another with some with their enemy because it was absolutely an ambush. Have you seen the car? Go look up the CIA vehicle that they were in that was bulletproof, that had reinforcement. It was a very expensive vehicle. It had technology to keep them safe in it. I've talked to those that know what kind of vehicle these are. And if you were rolling off of a cliff, it doesn't do what that vehicle did. They must have had some kind of handheld missile or something. I don't know. I don't know. But it was an ambush. And 4 individuals died, 2 CIA that were on the payroll, an office space and a payroll of Maru Campos. And I said right when I saw their names, Black and Johnston, I said, okay, my suspicion is that they're on the payroll of Maru Campos, that they are double agents with the cartel, and that they are from the Mormon colonies there in Chihuahua. Dual citizens, Americans, yet also Mexicans. And this is the truth when you look at Alejandro de la Vega serving on the governor's administration at the same time in Chihuahua, at the same time serving on the Texas governor's administration. This is, and you have to swear allegiance. And so this is a huge conflict of interest, but it is a display. It is confirmation to anyone that has doubts that their allegiance is not with Mexico and their allegiance is not with the United States. They are a cartel, and they were aligning with other cartels to have a monopoly, a cartel monopoly, and to, I would say, a coup. I think that this is my opinion now, but I think it's an educated opinion, that Maru Campos wanted to take unseat President Sheinbaum, and that she wanted to become president and maybe change the name from Mexico to Marulanda. Marulanda. I want Marulanda. That's how I see the evidence, what it declares, because she, and to also get parts of, with that Centella, the Torah Centella platform, $1.27 billion, that was just the start of it. And then to bring in the Pegasus software that they've been using, and all this coordination that they were doing, their target, I think they felt like they had Mexico as Marlandia, and that they were their focus then was on the United States, especially Texas. New Mexico, of course, with the help of Jeffrey Epstein, was with Zorro Ranch, and Beto O'Rourke with his family's ranch there, and Duarte buying buying ranches there with their illicit funds. And then you have the CEO of Juarez getting caught being a fraudster, a really fugitive fraudster. That's what he is, a fugitive fraudster. And that he crossed over into the United States. President Trump is right all along. They send the criminals. They send the criminals. And Maru Campos, with the help of Carlos Manuel Salas, sent the criminal, the fugitive fraudster, into the United States, coordinated with that. That requires a lot of coordination. I crossed over that border, oh my gosh, so many times. So many times. And I even posted up my my phone Google Maps, how many times we went over to Juarez to investigate what happened to our son. We went so many times. And you have to show documents. And I remember looking at them in their eyes, and I knew they knew. I knew they knew. And to live with that, can you imagine that they live with that? It can make you really either a zombie or the most hateful, evil person. But there are some that are relieved that things are being exposed, that this whole thing is being exposed, and they share this amazing document. Because she has now, the new news that we're getting is that President Scheinbaum has asked for the prosecutors, the FGR, the AG, to look into the treasonous treaty. Maru Campos is also facing impeachment. She's also facing a lawsuit from Javier Corral for wrongful arrest. So not only treason, of course, treason for these rogue and unauthorized operations with foreign agents, but then the impeachment, then the treasonous treaty, then the wrongful arrest. So the crimes of Maru Campos are just piling up. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can tell you that right now. And this document is proof that she knew all along that this was all intentional. This was not an accident. She's not innocent. This was intentional. And it's been intentional for a long time because you see, even with her lawyer, you can tell that this is intentional. Who she picked for her lawyer. So, the other huge news that we have, it's so big. So for a long time now, we've been telling everybody that Richard's case is intertwined with the Walmart mass shooting case because he knew and he reported a lot of things, y'all. But he reported that his unit and the military were involved in the Walmart mass shooting. that was used to form a false narrative against President Trump. This was an attempt to divert attention from the audits, because the weapons, and we know that from um, from General Stewart, James Stewart, who let that out of the bag. I think he might regret that now, or maybe he doesn't regret that now, because I don't know, because they turned him into some kind of orc. At the beginning, they just rushed to bring him in, and they did not. They did not tell him much, which really surprised us, that he didn't know what he was doing. And he told us some things that he wasn't supposed to tell us. And that was that Fort Bliss was under audit for the weapons. And then Soto, CID agent Soto, corroborated that. And then we received more corroboration that they were under audit, and Richard's reports triggered audits. And the Walmart mass shooting was a diversion, an orchestrated, bloody, very bloody, terrible, that they see, they don't care about the people, right? That to divert attention from the crime that was being revealed at the border, um, to also double fold to attack President Trump, and to somehow propel Beto O'Rourke ahead of Trump. It didn't work, but the evidence absolutely shows what they were doing. I'm a mother. I have experience with lots of children, and you can follow the trail. You can follow the trail and the fingerprints and all the evidence, and you can tell what they were doing and what they were doing. Veronica Escobar, Beto O'Rourke, and others. They were, and the El Paso cartel, Alejandro de la Vega Foster, and that whole group there. They were trying to push Beto O'Rourke, and they were absolutely attacking President Trump falsely. Falsely. And we know that because of the Michael Maiella's, married into the Patrick Crusius family. And I've posted up all of that evidence. And so we also know that the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated, that the scene was staged. We know that. There's so much evidence, okay? We know that the two lead FBI agents, FBI agent Petkus, Todd Petkus, and FBI agent David Scott Frost, botched the case. They botched the case. We also know that Todd Petkus has close military relationship because his house was under a VA loan. So he has service somehow in his family. And we know that Frost was dual-hatted, that not only was he an FBI agent, but he was also a senior NCO in the headquarters of First AD under Sean Bernabe, General Sean Bernabe, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. We know that. We have the receipts for that. We've shared those receipts. We filed those receipts. They were the lead investigators for the Walmart mass shooting. For this, they were up to no good. We also know that both of them are part of the Mormon faction. Okay, I'm telling you, that is a common denominator. I get no pleasure out of saying that. It's just, this is what connects them. They're connected by this funeral fraud, this cartel, and this Mormon faction. And the Mormon faction, many times, many times. They're dual citizens. They're from the colonies, they're in Chihuahua, and they're American citizens as well. So, and Todd Petkus and David Frost are up to no good. We know that David Frost also, um, had some real legal problems for domestic violence. Um, so, there's a paper trail. There's a paper trail for all of this. And we know now, evidence confirms that they took a trip. They traveled to Ciudad Juarez, to the Fiscalia, where we went also. We were there multiple times, okay, filing there for our son's case. And Todd Petkus and David Frost went there also in regards to Richard's case, but not to get answers. No, to request that Carlos Manuel Salas and the prosecutor's office there in the North Zone would shut down, tamper with, do what needs to be done to obstruct the investigation into our son's murder case. So the lead FBI investigators traveled to Juarez, Mexico to request an obstruction of a U.S. Army soldier murder case. Let that sink in. And Carlos Manuel Salas, who lives in El Paso, he has a house in El Paso, he has a Mercedes in El Paso, that is registered in El Paso with his driver's license in El Paso. And he obliged because, see, the border doesn't mean anything to them except for to exploit it. They're working for the cartel, and they're working for the El Paso cartel, El Chapo, Sinaloa, CJNG, La Linea, Juarez Alliance cartel. It's an alliance with a $1.27 billion surveillance AI spy grid, including the tower, the 20-story tower with the helipad on top of it. That was made possible by the treasonous treaty that Maru Campos intentionally signed with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and then followed up with meetings that were also unlawful and a betrayal of Mexican sovereignty, Mexican constitutional law, and the Mexican people. That is huge. Not only that, but she gave contracts to the Purchase Ariano Caron family of the funeral fraud, the flush peddlers that were giving families fake ashes, stacking up bodies, in alliance with La Diabla, CJNG, that organ harvested, where evidence indicates that happened to Richard. And I mean, bodies everywhere in this funeral home. This is the house. There were bodies in this house too. This house here. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but this here, this is like where the oven is, but there was bodies all in this house here. Okay. This little door here. There were bodies in the hearse. Yeah. Sacrilege. No respect. And here he is. He's a contractor for what? Security. Security. Like Acosta, right? Security. And then he's running this, and then he goes and runs restaurants and things. But he lives in El Paso. Okay. He lives in El Paso. Oh, and yeah, this is a good one. I almost forgot. If I go in, you can't see, but there is Raphael. I need to make this into two pictures because it's hard to go in. But this is Maru's mother. She was the head of the health inspection. Okay, she was the head of that, of giving the permits. This place, no permits, no potable water, no air condition, right? Rat infested, over 400 bodies piled up, and she allowed it to happen. This was intentional. And then giving him, this same guy that was giving fake and advertising in both Juarez and Mexico and the US and in El Paso, advertising in El Paso and Juarez for urns. Look at of the crushed like, oh, we're going to take care of you, and then they give fake ashes while flesh peddling these bodies. And that was intentionally okay for Maru Campos, because that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen unless it's intentional. And that's cross-border. There is almost a dozen, maybe more than a dozen, of funeral homes that were part of this. And it's across the border. So that's without counting the ones across the border. Because Purchase Funeral Homes, the group of Purchase, is huge, was also tied to this. And La Diabla tied to Del Carmen Funeral Home. That dead bodies were also found there. Her family, La Diabla's family, was employed by Beto O'Rourke. So, yeah, this was intentional, and it was very, very evil. Very evil. So, this is the new fiscal, the new prosecutor that has taken Hargi's place. Now, Cesar Hargi testified today. I think that's what you call it. Testified today in Juarez. And they were calling him all kinds of names. Okay? They don't like him. They absolutely know what an evil man he is. Okay? And Maru Campos, she didn't do what she was asked to do. Of course she didn't. She was supposed to go to Juarez, but no, she flew to, and I'm sure she charged the taxpayers for that, flew to Mexico City to testify there, to show up there. And all in red, of course. I think the red stands for all the blood that's on her hands. And I mean that. She's covered in blood. And it gives me no pleasure to say that. But I will be very, what would be the word? The right thing, relieved to see her impeached, to see her uh, convicted of treason, to see her get the penalty for what she's done. For the Mexican people, that will be a relief, and for our family. He's the new prosecutor. We'll see what happens. What does Francisco want to do? Right? His last name is Soto. Oh, wow. Wow. It's just crazy. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Here is maybe this is a good one. You can go close up to see Raphael. This is Raphael. This is his wife. I think they're divorced now. She was with El Paso City Magazine. City Magazine. Here is La Diabla. Here's some bodies there. Of course, they live next door to Beto O'Rourke. So Beto O'Rourke lived next door to Raphael, right next door, and was employing La Diabla's family. Here's Carlos Manuel Salas. There's so much evidence. Here he is advertising. Um, and Fort Bliss was also involved in this because mortuary operations absolutely was involved in this. So thank you so much for coming on so late. It is midnight, and I did get on a little bit earlier. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a busy day. It was so busy. And you see from the breaking news that we have put out because of all of you helping us. And we hope to further earn your trust and your respect because together is how we're going to get accountability for this kind of evil that people say it'll never stop. No. Look, y'all, God he's just waiting for the faithful. These evil cartel people that are thugs are nothing to God. And all of those virtues that, I always wondered, my parents are teaching me virtues and the full armor of God and what that means, and to have the temperance, to have patience, to have long suffering, to have kindness and grace and respect, and all of these things. I understand it now because that's what it takes to earn respect and to file, and to get accountability, to get justice.